Hello everyone, this is Professor Gardner. I just wanted to send you a video message about a few things. I noticed in the journals that some of you were talking about how it would be nice to focus a little bit more on how do we read Shakespeare, how do we maybe analyze it and interpret it. And certainly as we get closer to the research paper that we'll do near the end of the semester, we'll talk more about close reading and about how do we turn those close readings into paragraphs within a paper. For now, what I did was I posted a couple of resources on semiotic interpretation, and I posted, I think, like a good TED Talk video, not a TED Talk video, but a TED Ed video that kind of puts the semiotic stuff into maybe more layman's terms. So take a look at those things. And the other thing I would say as far as accessing the language, and we'll continue to have more lectures on Shakespeare's language in terms of its structure. We've already had little tidbits on how it's pronounced and how that can change the meaning of things. But as far as just understanding it, some things that I've done in the past. One, I read a synopsis of the play before I read the play. And the Folger edition of the plays that you have access to, they have plot summaries. That's what the synopsis is. So that way it kind of helps me have what's an overall understanding of the action that's happening, right? Then when I read something, I can kind of put it in the context of those plot summaries. As far as the language goes too, and understanding it better, oftentimes I would perform the play all by myself, just reading it out loud so I could hear it. And sometimes hearing it would help me better understand what was being said. And then finally, the other thing that I would do in addition to reading the play, these are all tips in addition to reading it, would be watching a performance of it. Using Canopy, you do have access to some BBC productions. And while, maybe in terms of taste, it's a little more fusty or stodgy, kind of traditional, it still helps with understanding the play because you can see the actors perform and engage with each other. So, to review, read plot summaries, and read the play out loud to yourself. Also watch performances. Now some concluding remarks on As You Like It. Boy, what an ending, right? Hymen comes in at the very end and resolves all of these loose ends. Some of you may have picked up on this. I didn't see it in the footnotes, and I was kind of waiting to see if it would come up. But, this is a great example of what's called the Deus Ex Machina, right? We have the God of the machine, which is what that Latin phrase refers to. It originally comes from a Greek tradition of drama where a god would appear at the end of the story and be lowered by some kind of a mechanism onto the stage. We don't have a stage direction for that here, but we know that Hymen in his final remarks does refer to descending from heaven. And that could be a little meta commentary on whatever machine may have been used to bring him down onto the stage. And remember that or if you didn't know, the Deus Ex Machina also refers to this contrivance of the plot that kind of wraps things up very, very neatly. So we see it maybe in novels in the form of like a letter that reveals everything, or a will that presents an inheritance that solves all of the characters' financial problems, right? Something that comes out of nowhere. The movie Dodgeball from more than 10 years ago now made a joke about the Deus Ex Machina. Maybe I'll post that to the class website. But I think Hymen is a good example of this old dramatic convention. The other thing I'd like to say is Rosalind's concluding remarks, right? She says it's not tradition for the lady to get the final words in the epilogue. Indeed, something that was also not in fashion during the time of Shakespeare performances was women performing on stage. Women don't get to perform on the stage until 1660, at least not on the public stages and in that official kind of way. So who's playing Rosalind and Celia? You might be asking, right? And Audrey, right? Most likely it was little boys. Little boys or young men. And that's important to keep in mind, especially when considering the gender politics of the play. I'll definitely return to gender politics and performance at a later time in the semester, but keep that in mind when thinking about the end of As You Like It. The last thing I'd like to say is on a sensitive note, right? So we are moving from comedy in As You Like It to a tragedy in Titus Andronicus. And this is a very rough tragedy to deal with. Of course, with tragedy, you expect people to die. We'll talk about those conventions in lecture, but there are definitely some violations that people experience in this play that are very, very serious. I don't want to give too much away because you'll be reading it and experience it in that sense, but I do want to say that this covers on issues that are very current to our society right now. So if, as you're reading these things, you're feeling uncomfortable, or or certain things are being triggered for you, and you would like some kind of assistance or some support, right? And you feel safe doing so, please feel free to contact me. There are resources on campus that I can refer you to. When we speak about Titus Andronicus, especially if we do happen to touch on any of the violations that are discussed or that occur in the play, I want us to be respectful and sensitive and to know we don't know what our classmates have experienced, right?